charge what the market's worth. So let's say the market's $500, right? And you'll say, well, I haven't got the experience, I haven't got the clients, blah, blah, blah. So you convince yourself that you're at 250 or 300 or whatever it may be. I'm saying, no, set the price at 500. Now, what you might say to a client is, look, this is a pilot program or something words to that effect. So therefore, I'm going to give a discount off my normal rate because of that, and call it a founder's fee. So it's not a discount; it's more of a founder's offer.
Hi, my name is Vindhya V. This is Art of the Extraordinary, the podcast for those of you who's ready to play a much bigger game and leave an extraordinary legacy behind. I'm glad you're here, and it's time to make your quantum leap. Hey you guys, this is Vindhya, a high performance coach, and I help build high performing teams that makes you look great. Every week, I bring on guests who have done pretty extraordinary things in the world. And my mission is to dig deeper in a quest to find out what has made them different. But before I jump into the episode, let me ask you this question. How would you like to create a business that is built around your life? Well, today I have the opportunity to speak with Paul Higgins, who is building a global community helping corporate escapees to run a lifestyle business. After a stellar executive career at one of the most recognizable brands on the planet, i.e. Coca-Cola, Paul faced a decision of either staying and risking his health or leaving and extending it. So he chose the latter and started his own company. He became a well-qualified coach, advisor to blue-chip companies, and a productivity expert. While he liked corporate, he had a great desire to work with entrepreneurs and founded an outsourcing and a tech consulting business to deliver extraordinary results for global clients. But because his health started to take its toll, he divested the outsourcing business and created a mastermind for employees transitioning into entrepreneurship. Leveraging from his own experience, today he helps corporate escapees to build their dream business without sacrificing their lifestyle. He is a community owner, podcaster, and a tech evangelist who is passionate about thriving with an inherited condition. So without a further ado, let's jump into our episode. Paul, welcome to the show. For those of our audience who don't know about you, can you please tell us a little bit about you and the journey that you have been through?
Yeah, so look, I came fresh out of university, not ever wanting to work for the company that I worked for 18 years. So I did marketing and accounting at university, and I always worked for a company called Coca-Cola through my uni. My father had actually worked there, or was working there. And I vowed that I'd never work there, and they vowed the same because they didn't believe in children or siblings getting jobs. So I basically said, I'm traveling overseas, and they said, look, we're desperate for sales reps, just do it for 3 months, and then you can go and do what you really want to do. And, it was funny. My father worked for one of the best companies in the world, but it didn't seem like that as a kid. Like it was, So once I started working there, I realized the opportunities. It was a great company, and I stayed there for 18 years.
I guess Coca-Cola is one of the biggest companies that you can work for, and they have been around for a very long time. So I'm guessing from seeing your father work there, did that have some influence in your making your decision into working there, or was it something else?
Look, I think I always want to stand on my own 2 feet. So with Dad being there, I didn't want to be seen like I was, being given a job. So that was probably one of the key reasons why I didn't want to work there. But when I did, mobile phones had just hit the Australian market, and the company, I said, can I get a mobile phone? I could see how it would add benefit. And they said no, because we'd have to give it to everyone else. So anyway, I went and bought a mobile phone. I then used that phone to tell my customers to call me. So a call might be, 80 cents in the old days. But I said, look, you'd only have to sell one more bottle of Coke to recover that. And as soon as the stock arrived, I could be there. So I used that to get exceptional results, and I got promoted really quickly, and then sort of found my own 2 feet. But my first reservations was I don't want to be seen as if it's a job for the boys, so to speak.
So since you've worked in Coca-Cola, the place where you are at right now, it's quite different. Can you please tell us a little bit about that journey? Because I think that is a massive leap, and a lot of people dream about it. A lot of people do it successfully or not successful. Just tell us a little bit about how that journey has been.
Yeah, so back in when I was 18, actually, I was my mother had a major health issue, and we found out there's a family history of kidney condition, chronic kidney disease. So at 18, I knew I had it, but it was sort of in the back of my mind. So I worked really hard through corporate, worked ridiculous hours, traveled the world, all the things that you do in corporate. And then, in the back of my mind, I always thought, look, one day I'll start my own business, but I'd get a promotion every 2 years, and I was like an entrepreneur within Coke. So I was always given, amazing opportunities. So it ticked along, but in 2011 or 2010, 11, my specialist said, look, your kidney condition's got to a position, if you continue to work in the environment you are and the way that you're working, you'll probably have failure in 2 years. So, it was a pretty easy decision for me then to say, well, look, do I have my kidneys fail in 2 years, or do I try to find another way? And the other way was to leave, work for myself, and, successfully I did that. And I'm getting a transplant. I don't know when this show's going live, but it's, for me, as we're recording it, it's next week. So it's been 8 years. Wow. That I've slowly seen the illness impact my life. I've been on dialysis. Now I'm about to have a kidney transplant. But the great thing is that it hasn't changed my work. So, making that decision back in 2011 to leave has been the best decision, because now I'm in complete control. So I can sit in dialysis, still work, help people around the globe, but not be restricted to, you've got to be on a plane at 6 a.m. or you've got to be in a meeting or whatever corporate was. So I find it's been brilliant. But there was sort of three things, I suppose, in summary. There was my kidney condition, which was a real key driver. The other one was sugar. So I just felt uncomfortable working for a company that was one of the biggest causes of kidney disease in the world. 30% of people with kidney disease, it's because of diabetes, and most of those is because of sugar, and Coke is a big component of that. So I sort of felt like I was working for the devil a little. And then the third one was my own business, that I really always wanted to run my own business. I'm, the more that companies become, the world becomes flatter, I think in corporate, the less decisions you get to make locally. So that entrepreneur part started to diminish, and I thought, well, I can really make more decisions for myself and back myself if I've got my own business. So that was sort of the three key drivers.
Well, it feels to me a little bit like, it's almost as if your body was kind of giving you a chance to actually go out and do what you really wanted to do for so long.
Yeah, look, it, definitely felt that way. And I suppose the other theme here is family. Like, I used to have a daily reflection that I read every day, and I'm a big component of lover of Franklin Covey. So actually, when I left Coke, I was a facilitator for them. But Stephen Covey had this thing of coming up with your daily habits. What's your mission in life? What are your values? What are your behaviors? And I'd read that in corporate, and I just think, I'm not living them. Like, I want to be this person, but I'm being this person. And it was no one's fault. It just was what it was. So now I can actually look at that every day and say, well, I'm actually living to that. And, a lot of people have a near-death experience and think, oh, wow, I should do something different. And my surgeon in the last operation said I just survived. I just pulled through. I sort of had that feeling of leaving, and, it was a bit surreal. But when I woke up, I thought, you know what? I don't want to change anything. I'm actually doing what I'm doing. But I think if I was back in corporate, I would have said, well, I've got to change it.
Yeah, that's amazing. And look, you're doing amazing work at the moment. So tell us a little bit about what your brand does and what kind of people you help out right now.
Yeah, so the brand's called Build, Live, Give, and it's a global community for corporate escapees. So people like myself that were employees, and now they're turned into entrepreneurs. And I think you're one of those as well, Vindra. Is that right?
Yes, I am. Yeah.
Yeah, great. Yeah, so it's really created for people like you and I and other people listening out there, where I spent 5 years going around in circles. I did everything possible not to be successful. And, that was hard, looking at my wife each month saying, I promise you this amount of money and I still can't deliver it, or saying to the kids, we can't do this, we can't do that. I had to adjust my lifestyle because I wasn't earning the money that I had money. I was very successful in corporate, but I didn't want to touch that. I wanted to keep that, and then I wanted to stand on my own 2 feet. It's a bit, I suppose, I'm a bit pig-headed like that. It was a bit like when I started at Coke. So, I just did so many things that I wish I hadn't have done, and they were learnings, and everyone says learnings are great, but they are, but it took 5 years. So what I really want to do now is help people be more successful, whatever success means to them. It's not always money, but be more successful within a shorter period of time. And there was no community I could find globally that supported people like you and I. So that's why I created Build, Live, Give.
We're talking about that you struggled for 5 years, and trust me, I know how this feels, and I know how my clients feel about this as well. Now, what changed after that 5 years? Like, how did things shift for you?
Yeah, so the simple thing is I joined a mastermind. So I joined a mastermind run by a guy in Australia, and that really shifted it. I think my health had got worse. I was running a advisory business. I was running an outsourcing business, and I was running a tech business. And to be honest, none of them were quite where I wanted them to be. So with good mentoring from the person that was running the mastermind, I ended up just doubling down on 2. I sold off the outsourcing business, and then I really just made things simpler. And I set up a mastermind just like I was in. And in July 2016, I spent 8 weeks in Europe with my family, having the trip of our lifetime before I couldn't travel anymore. And I ran this mastermind, and I thought that's what I'm here to do. So that was the real pivotal change around that 5-year mark for me.
Well, I guess that's a really, really important point, because I think a lot of people who are leaving the corporate world to go and build their own thing, I think a lot of us don't realize the learning curve that's ahead of us, because we think that, okay, we've been up on a ladder to a certain level, and we think that we're just going to jump at the same level on a different ladder, but it's actually not the case. You usually jump to a very bottom of a ladder that you have a massive learning curve to go through. So I guess that's what you were referring to, and that's why you're helping your people with now.
Yeah, and it's, a lot of the things that you learn running your own business, as you know, that they're not in a textbook. And I think these days, unfortunately, there's so much content out there that you can drown in your own research as well. So, it's difficult. So for me, I finally went to someone that gave me really good insight, gave me good structure, and it sort of crystallized all my learnings and made it simpler. But I realized that the people in that group weren't like me. So a lot of them were trying to run 8, 9, 10-figure online businesses. They may not have been family orientated. They just had different values and had a different background to me. So that's when I thought, well, look, I love the mastermind, but maybe I could do it for people more like me who are normally family orientated, have had a really successful corporate career, but now it's time to do things on their own terms.
Going back to the mastermind idea, I think I agree with you when you said that there's a lot of content out there, there's a lot of information, and I see a lot of people who's doing masterminds as well, and sometimes I get confused. So for anyone who's interested, like, what would you say is like some of the good things to look at in a mastermind, that you would go and say, yep, that's actually a good one, and I agree with how it's been run. Like, what are the qualities of a mastermind that people should look out for?
Yeah, look, and I suppose I'll answer it by saying what we do, because it's sort of, I've taken best practice from around the world. So I've been in lots of them, etc. So if I sort of summarize it, I think the first thing is that someone should really get to know you and your business. So I think that goes without saying, but having a really good diagnostic and working out where you are, and most importantly, where you want to be, and what are the key challenges that get in the road. So I think that's really important. And out of that should form a plan. So we have what's called the 5 rapid growth drivers. I'm just about to launch a book on those. And, we set that plan around those. Then it's the frequency of the meetings. So for me, in our meetings, we have, your biggest win and your key learning for the week. And we go around and share that as a group. And then we go into one-on-one. So one-on-one is where I'm the facilitator. So it might be someone else facilitating, but in mine, I facilitate and I ask, what's your one action from last week? Your key challenge for the week, and then we go around the group and ask for experience, not opinions. And I think what happens in a lot of masterminds, it becomes more social and people give opinions. Whereas, if you don't have direct experience, don't comment. And I think that's why it's important, because a lot of people in our group, because it's like-minded, the coaches, thought leaders, it's similar experiences. So they share those, and then the accountability piece is, well, what's the one thing you're going to do next week? And when you turn up, you've got to, say what that is. So I think that's a really good framework. And then the post, what I do is when someone mentions something, and if we can't answer it on the actual mastermind, I then link a resource to it. So I'll go and find a resource. And, I've sort of got a Google for business. I've got so much knowledge I've collected through podcasts and other things that I've curated it all, and then I put it into the minutes. So it becomes very action orientated. So I don't go to someone and say, hey, go and listen to this hour podcast to get this two minutes. I go, no, this is exactly what you've got to do, who to listen to. Or the other key one is the right expert. So we've got 170 vetted experts where you can say, hey, I need a graphic designer, I need a mindset coach, I need a website developer, whatever it is. And we can say, well, look, here's someone we've used, we've vetted, they've got a good NPS score, the community said they've right, and then you could use them, which I think makes a really big difference. So I think they're the things that we do in our mastermind, which I think sets it apart from some others. But to be honest, I'm a bit like, I'm not saying I'm like Steve Jobs, but as you know, with Steve Jobs, he was always innovating off other people's experiences. That's what I did. I went to some of the best masterminds and innovated to get to that model.
Coming from the experience that you had in Coca-Cola, and being there for 18 years, obviously, got you a lot of experience in different angles. What would you say are the experiences and the lessons that you brought in to building your own business?
Yeah, look, I think the first one is they had a saying, think global, act local. And I think, some people I see, they get so caught up in the geography they're in, and they look at it from, I'm going to service this geography. Whereas today, I think there's never been a better time to service people globally in your particular niche. So I really like that. Think global, act local. I think the other thing is around that balance of strategy and implementation, because I think, a lot of people leave corporate where it's more strategic and you're more thought-based, but in your own business, you've actually got to get stuff done. So I think, having that balance of those two, I think is really important. That's probably the second one. And Coke, what I loved is we'd sit in a board meeting and talk about the next 20-year vision for the company. And then that afternoon, we'd be out facing up bottles in a milk bar, as an example. So you always had that, top to bottom, which I think is really important. The next one is around research. So making sure that you're really understanding your consumer or your client. And the Coke company were brilliant at that. And, I think that could be carried through. Often what I see is people coming up with their own solution and then trying to sell it. And that's so much harder than actually listening to your, building an audience, listening to their pain points and delivering on that. I think it's a lot better. So those were some of the key things. And then the last one I'll mention is just around, using experts. So the Coke company didn't try to do everything in-house. So the Coke company actually had bottlers. So the Coke company did the branding, they did the strategy, but the bottlers did a lot of the other stuff. So if you take that model into a small business, you can apply the same thing. So for me, I know I've got to do client work, I've got to do sales, I've got to do podcasting, I've got to do LinkedIn. They're the 4 things that are really going to make a difference in my business. And then all the rest, I have a team in the Philippines that does that for me. And I see a lot of business owners trying to wear too many hats and not getting experts or not building a team to take off the stuff that is not what they love to do or maybe repetitive, to do the things that they really love to do. Because we all get 24/7. So it's not about finding more time. It's around how you prioritize your time.
One of the questions that I get a lot is, which is a fair enough question, it's the question about the chicken and the egg. So when you want to outsource the things that you don't want to do or you're not great at, one of the things that a lot of people face is that you are, stretched on cash or how much, money you have to spend on other people or hiring. So how would you say that somebody should go about, getting around outsourcing so then you get to use your time to the best?
Yeah, look, and there's people have got different experiences. I think most of our audience, hopefully, have, and your audience listening today, have got a bit of a nest egg. So I say just invest a bit of that nest egg in yourself. So I still think the best way to make money in the world is actually to run your own business and be in control. So maybe you take a little bit of money and you tip that in. So I borrowed money from, our personal into business. I made sure that it was a loan. It was set up right. I had no different to a bank, but I was lending myself money, or my wife in this case was lending me money. So that's probably the first thing to get ahead. The other one is just the opportunity costs. So, everything that you might be worth $100 an hour that you're doing that's worth 14 is actually costing you. And a lot of people don't look at their effective hour rate. So how many hours you're working versus the money you're getting, and time is not free, So people just say, oh, well, I might as well do it because I'm not paying myself anything. And it's like, well, actually you need to, because the flip side of owning your own business is that if something happens to you, that you're very vulnerable. So what you want to do is take money out of the business so that you can actually invest it in other assets that aren't reliant upon you. So whether that's shares, super, whatever you want to do. But I think, that opportunity cost is probably something that not a lot of people look at well enough.
That's a really, really great point, because I think a lot of people consider their own time to be free, and it's actually not, and that's where a lot of people go wrong. Talking about from your experience in coaching other people in the mastermind as well, what do you see as like common mistakes that people make in starting their own business or even growing their own business coming from the corporate world?
Yeah, look, I think one of the key things is, I'll reinvent the wheel. So, I'm a very smart person. I've done very well in corporate, so, I don't need help. I can just do this myself. And I'm talking about myself here because that was definitely me. I just thought, look, this is going to be, yes, everyone else says it's hard, but I'll just, this is going to be easy for me. And it really wasn't. So I think if I had got help and not try to do as much by myself at the start, that would have definitely helped. The other thing is, really running your own business is about getting an offer that converts. That's the most important thing. So a lot of people spend time on things that don't really move the needle. So I had a conversation with someone recently is, should I use, I'm going to go research Apple versus PC versus using Outlook 365 or whatever. I'm like, hang on, that's not the best use of your time. Just go Google and Apple, right? Because that's the best thing for small business. And then spend your time researching your target audience as to what they want. That's where you should be spending your time, and actually asking people if they'll pay money, not what computer I should have. And then that sort of list goes on to, I'll go and build my own website, or I'll go and do this, or I'll go and do that. And that's all time that takes you from getting an offer that converts.
Yeah, I think it goes back to the point where you touched before, which is about actually, researching and knowing who your target market is and what do they actually want, rather than coming up with a solution and try to fit an audience to the solution, right?
Yeah, definitely. And, I did that. I'm an ideas guy, right? So I've got millions of ideas, and every day I've got a new idea. And I often fell in the trap of, because it was me, like when I realized, oh, I'm actually building a community for me, I know all the answers, but I'm a huge tech guy. So I run a tech company as well. I love technology. So I thought everyone should be great with technology. So I was so close to my own business that I didn't realize that most of my thought leaders, coaches and consultants, they actually don't know how to use technology. So, the solutions I was giving them weren't matching them where they were in their journey. So I think it's really important to meet people where they are rather than where you think they are.
What would you say is the best advice and the worst advice that you've ever been given in transitioning to having your own business?
Yeah, look, I think the best advice that I was given is to build an audience, then figure out what their pain points are, which we've just been talking about, and then, go and really research that and take the time to work on that. I think, that Coke company where they used to research their consumers before they launched a product, no different for you. So I think that is probably the biggest lesson and advice that I got. Unfortunately, I got it a bit too late. So I wish I had got that in year one, not in sort of year 4. But that's been the biggest change for me in my business.
That's such a golden nugget. After you left the corporate world, I'm guessing that you've had to pick up different skills that you didn't have before, and you may have to have even change your approach in doing things. What has been your experience, and what have you had to change or learn or shift to make things happen for you now?
Yeah, look, I think one is around, if progress, not perfection. I think that's a big one. So, in the Coke company, they were a brilliant company around 126 years, had very smart, intelligent people. And, you always had to make sure you're 100% right in a way. It was a very a critical environment in some ways. And what I realized is, you don't have to be a perfectionist in your own business. Actually, that's going to harm you. So you just got to let some things go. And I really struggled with that for a long time. So that'd be definitely one. I think the other is join the right community that we've talked about. So be surrounded by people and get advice from people that have gone before you. Don't try to do it all by yourself. And the other one is, get experts. So get people that can help you. If someone does something every day, they'll get better at it as a general rule, just like you. So if you're really good at coaching, like you are, just do the coaching, but don't go out and try to build your own website. Don't go out and try to build your own Facebook campaigns. Just have experts that do that. And I think that's the way that you can grow or scale a lot faster.
From your experience with working with entrepreneurs or wannabe entrepreneurs, what would you say are the biggest challenges that hold them back? You may have touched on a couple of them already.
Yeah, look, I think one of the biggest ones is mindset. I don't know, it's a bit of a buzz term at the moment, but I think it's most people undercharge, right? So they think, how I talked about not really understanding where someone is. Most people think, well, this is pretty obvious to someone else what I know. And in most cases, it's actually not. You know it that well, you're too close to it. So I think one of the key things is making sure that you're charging right. And that's having the right mindset that you're actually going to help someone. So if you're going to get someone a result, then you're going to help someone, then you should be actually out there talking about it. So a lot of people say, I don't like, come from corporate, I've never sold before. I don't like selling, all of these limiting beliefs that come up around mindset. So I think it's definitely critical to get that mindset right and realizing that selling is actually finding out where someone is, finding out where they want to be and helping them get there as quick as they can. And if you can't, then move on. I think the other key lesson is who you spend your time with. So, I think a lot of people spend time having chats and conversations where it's not going to go anywhere. And I was a classic at this, I just thought I had all this freedom. So I just spent all this time talking to people, but, I didn't have a good qualification process. I didn't have a 15-minute qualification, a very specific sales call. And, even though I knew how to sell, I didn't know how to sell to small business owners. So I think getting that right is also something that is really important. And the third thing is around, technology. I think a lot of people say, look, I'm just overwhelmed by technology and I prefer just not to deal with it. And then there's some others that probably use too much, and which, I could be guilty of at times. But I think just making sure that you're using the right technology. So I think having a virtual assistant is an essential for business. And if you have the right technology set up, you can leverage that. And, we've done a lot to work out what is the best technology set, so it makes it easy for people. But I don't think in today's age you can ignore technology.
Yeah, I think going back to the point that you made about charging the right amount, I think in my experience, a lot of people tie up how much they charge to how much they're worth. So they tie
Mhm.
both of them up about my worthiness, and I think that is just a rabbit hole that a lot of people go down, and you cannot come out of it. What's your experience with that?
Yeah, no, look, I totally agree. And what I say to people is charge what the market's worth. So let's say the market's $500, right? And you'll say, well, I haven't got the experience, I haven't got the clients, blah blah blah. So you convince yourself that you're at 250 or 300 or whatever it may be. I'm saying no, set the price at 500. Now, what you might say to a client is, look, this is a pilot program or something words to that effect. So therefore, I'm going to give a discount off my normal rate because of that, and call it a founder's fee. So it's not a discount, it's more of a founder's offer. So you do that, and then also you ask for other things in return. So, a great testimonial, because most of your work comes from referrals, and if you get great testimonials, when you get good results, it compounds, it becomes a snowball. So I think they're the type of things you can do, but don't go and say, well, I'm only worth half the market rate. I don't think that's the case. You and also make sure you're constantly improving your price, lifting your price. Coke used to put up their price 2-3 times a year, and I think most coaches and consultants in particular just set a price, leave it there, and that's the easiest way to make more money, is to sell to the same amount of people but charge more.
You seem to be doing a lot of great stuff in your space. Now, how do you manage all of this with a health condition that you have? Like, how do you manage it?
Yeah, look, I think the first thing is really prioritizing what are those four things. So that's the first thing. I know my top four, and I really focus on those. And we have a report each week. I track every 30-minute block. I work in 30-minute blocks. I track it in a tool called Toggle, and that helps me know that I'm spending time right. The second is having a fantastic team. So a shout out to my team. They're all based in the Philippines. As I said, I'm getting someone based in Venezuela to work from Melbourne time from 10 o'clock at night until 9 in the morning. So I've basically got a team there that's working in the background all the time for me. So I think team's critical, and I couldn't be happier with my team. And then the third thing is the use of technology. So I can effectively run my business from my smartphone from anywhere. So I sit on dialysis at the moment for roughly 20 hours a week, and I can just work. People don't need to know I'm sitting on a dialysis machine, but effectively I can run my business from my phone. So I think they're the things that have helped me work. I work 30 to 40 hours a week. I spend 20 hours a week on dialysis. I'm always seeing specialists, and I'm also an active dad that I coach my kids' sporting teams. I'm active in the community. So to manage all of that, I think I use those three key things.
It sounds like you have a full plate.
Yeah, look, it is, but I love it. It's not as if it's work for me anymore. I think it's that old saying: if you love what you're doing, it's not work. And I feel like that. And also, I suppose, because of my health, it helps me take my mind off it as well if I'm nice and occupied. And I love having conversations like this. So, is podcasting work? Well, classify it as work, but to me, it's something I love to do.
Yeah, I love it. That's actually quite true, because sometimes, when our family and friends ask, "Oh, what are you doing like on a Saturday?" and we give the answer work. One, it feels odd because it's actually not work; it's fun, but you don't know how to explain the whole thing to them, and people don't understand. I probably work a lot longer hours than I did in corporate, but I don't feel it because I love it so much.
Yeah, true. And I think, as you build a team, so, I think in the early years, yes, you'll definitely work more than corporate, but it's more enjoyable work. It's not the politics, it's not the travel, it's not all those things that you don't enjoy. So I think that's great. And then as you start to scale, you can start to get a team, and you can start to reduce those hours. And for me, travel is something that I truly love. So post transplant, I'll be able to travel again, and to run a business that doesn't miss a beat when you're traveling, I think that's wonderful. So, where does work and personal stop? Like, it's a bit grey for me. The only thing I am getting better at is not working at night. So I find it really easy to sit on my phone. I did a post on LinkedIn recently about this, where I was, going to sit on the phone with my dad while we were watching TV. He doesn't visit me that often. I live in the country. And I said, no, what would he love to do? So I put down the phone and went and got an ice cream. And I think, sometimes you got to just turn off as well and have those real connection moments.
I think it goes back to the point that you touched about having good habits, right? Setting your habits and your routines and whatever you need to set yourself up for success, and not just from a business standpoint, but from a life standpoint. As you say, how do you fit in travel, and how do you fit in your family, and how do you spend the time that you want with your kids, and all of that comes into play.
Yeah, and I don't think you're an either or. So I think you're an and a lot of people say, look, I just can't be organised. I can't be disciplined. And what I'd love you to think about is, no, look, I can always improve, right? So, don't hold on to the past and let the past interrupt your present. So, what are the little things that you can do to make a difference? And I've worked with lots of people that have said, no, sorry, I'm just fixed. That's the way I am. And we've been really successful in showing them that, no, there are some things that you can do that match your preference. So it's not trying to put my views onto you, but matching your preference to help manage that, because you don't have a boss. We use the masterminds as accountability. It's great. But other than that, you're all on your own. So if you're working on the wrong things, no one's really there to tell you. Whereas, and, unless you've got a great coach like yourself, but if you don't, and you're monitoring, which is really hard, you can get a bit lost.
Well, I want to just switch gears into a little bit about asking you about failures. Now, I don't really personally like that word, because I think, we learn from everything that happened, or everything that we experience. But what is your philosophy in dealing with things that either, it is a failure or either holds you back?
Yeah, look, I think the first thing is that point I made earlier around, don't reinvent the wheel. So if you know that somebody's done something and they've been successful and they've cracked it, just learn from them. So, there's a couple of key sites like Social Media Examiner do a great job around social media. So I just go and have a look at them. They've spent the best people in the world. So I go and look at what they do, and then I tailor it for me, instead of, starting from absolute scratch. So I think that's the first thing, so you can mitigate some of the lessons that you're going to learn. And also, asking people that have gone before you, I think once again, that starts to mitigate some of the risk. So you don't have to take as much risk. And then there's other things that, yes, you will get wrong. So unfortunately, I've, changed my name 3 times now, I think. And every time I do it, it's like, this is crazy, but they're things that I've learned. So if anyone ever came and said, change your name again, build, live, give, I would say no way. But, I was a slow learner in that. So there are lessons you're going to learn. And to me, it's like a big highway. So, you will take detours off that, but you just got to make sure that you got someone guiding you back on the road. And you will learn from things, but you just don't want to learn from things that you could have avoided.
I think that's one of the key things that a lot of people miss, is that, you wanna try to get it right the first time, but you will make all the plans and the strategies and everything in place, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're gonna succeed 100% of the time all the time. So I guess it's about learning. And yes, yeah, I understand the point that you mentioned about changing the name, but that's, I guess, evolving. You're learning all the time, and you cannot guarantee that nothing is going to change. And if we don't change, well, then we're not really going where we want to go, right?
Yeah, and look, and I think you've got to have, can everyone be an entrepreneur? My view is not really. Like, some people are actually much better staying in corporate because they like the consistency, they like, basically getting, told what to do in a way. That's what they like. And if you like that, stay there. If you don't like that and you want freedom and you want to be your own person and your own boss and make your own decisions and live and die by them, I think go and run your own business. It's never a better time to do it, but you will have lessons and some of them will be expensive. I picked an online provider that I thought was great out of the US, didn't do enough due diligence, left $15,000 US later, just disappeared.
Wow.
So that was basically my annual, nearly my annual wage in the second year just disappeared. So you will make mistakes like that and you learn from them. And what my learning turned into now is that I've got 170 vetted suppliers and experts around the world that if you come to me and say you want somebody, I'll give you someone that I know won't let you down. So I've leveraged off that learning to help others, but you will make mistakes like that, and don't be too hard on yourself when you do.
One thing that I wanted to ask you was that if you were to go back to the beginning of your journey, what would you change about how you did things?
Look, I've mentioned it a few times, but I definitely get more support. So peers, I sort of still hung around people that didn't understand me. You mentioned it before, where, people, they just haven't been in your shoes. So I think hanging around people being in my shoes would be definitely one. I think the other one is taking some of that money and investing it into a virtual assistant as soon as you can. I think that helps free up for you to work on the right things. And I think the third thing is be really clear on what you're going to achieve. So for me, you're going to take twice as long and earn half as much. And if you start with that in mind, it will solve those problems. I promised my wife an amount of money that I was never going to make, but I was overly confident. So, and that just led to a whole lot of heartache that I didn't need to have, because she would have accepted a number that was lower, but once I put a number on the table, that was locked in. So I think it's really important to do that as the third thing.
Well, I guess we just underestimate the learning curve and our own experience and our own journey, because my journey is not equal to yours and your journey is not equal to anybody else's. So you will learn a lot, but I guess we have to give time to learn and experience and evolve as a human being while we are on this journey as well. And the moment that we put limits around it, saying, okay, I got to make money tomorrow, I got to make money next month, that itself, I guess, put a lot of boundaries around how creative you're going to be as well. And I'm sure you can speak to this.
Yeah, it definitely. And you just don't want it to become a chore, right? So, I quickly went from this is the best time of my life to God, this is the hardest time of my life. And I think if you set the expectations right, get the help, you can avoid that roller coaster. You'll go through a roller coaster, but the bottom won't be as great if you set the expectations up right.
Well, having been through the journey that you are in right now, and you're just getting started because you're building something amazing, what is one thing that you've learned about yourself throughout this entire process?
Yeah, I think for me, it's around resilience. That you have. It could be by the day, it could be by the hour. You'll have a fantastic win where you'll pick up a new client and it's great, and then the next phone call you lose one of your biggest clients. Like it's just the roller coaster. And I think around that resilience is something. And for me, I suppose I've been doing it in both ways, because I've had the resilience of running my own business, but I've also had the resilience of a lot of changes in my personal life because of my health. I used to be a keen cyclist. I can't ride now. So there's been a lot of things that I've had to compromise on over the last 8 years, and I think I've been really resilient through that process. And I think my surgeon couldn't have summed it up better. He said, if you weren't as fit and healthy as you were, and I hadn't made the right decisions in November, I would no longer be here. So I think that resilience ended up paying off in the greatest gift I was ever given, which is my life.
So what's next, Paul?
Yeah, so post-transplant is where I'd really love to grow this community globally. So I think, we've got some great masterminds. We've got a great format. It really works. But what I'd love to do is inspire others to roll this out around the world. So I'd love to have local communities where people can meet with each other in person, but also be part of this online community and tribe as well. So that's what's next for Build, Live, Give.
Well, I'm sure that, the transplant is nothing to worry about, and wish you all the best with that. I would love to see that global community happening. That's amazing. I'm sure there's a lot of people in our audience who would want to be a part of that. Thank you so much, Paul, for being on the show. It was lovely having you, and it was a good chat.
Yeah, great. And look, if I've done a little download for your listeners. So if they go to blgdownload.com, they can get some tips on how you can get more thinking time. So it's basically, how can you save 2 hours a day? And there's 3 key killer tips there. So that's at blgdownload.com.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Paul. I will make sure that I will include all the links in the show notes so then you folks get it. Paul, other than that, how can anyone who is interested in what you do get in touch with you?
Yeah, so they can just find out more at buildlivegive.com, and that's live as in LIVE.
Great. Thank you so much, Paul. Again, lovely having you on the show. Thank you so much for everything that you shared.
Brilliant. Thanks, Vinda, for having me on. And also, I hope that the key thing here is if there's just take one thing, if you're listening to this, just take one thing to work further towards your whatever success is for you. That'd be brilliant.
Well, there you go, folks. That is our episode for today. I hope you got lots out of it and learned lots from Paul's story. Please go and check out the show notes on www.vindyab.com. That is VINDYAVEE.com. And I will put down all the links and all the resources that Paul shared with us today. And you can always go back and look at the show notes because I will be doing a summary of the episode. So even if you didn't take notes, there you go. It is right there for you to go and reference. So that will be a wrap for today. Until I meet you next week, have fun and keep at it in your extraordinary journey.